Hey guys, this is Max. Just a warning that there are some mixing and mic quality issues on this episode because I didn't figure that shit out while we were recording. Not gonna happen next time, hopefully. Just a heads up before the episode. Welcome everyone to episode 3 of the SkyTemple Podcast, an exercise in enthusiastic rambling about Explorers of Sky ROM hacks. My name is MaxSchersey, coming to you live from the US West Coast, and from down under in Australia, I'm joined by yakkomon. Summer has arrived over here, so that means I believe it'd be winter over there, judging by my geography knowledge. What kind of season person are you, yakkomon? What's your favorite season?
I am definitely a winter person. I
Okay.
do not like the summer. The Australian summers they just get too hot, and especially last summer we had I think it's a bit like the I don't know what it like the Gulf Stream winds, but the Southern Hemisphere version of it, and it kind of it was so humid and wet, like it was almost like the tropics for some reason here. I hate it.
Classic.
uh,
Classic. I grew up in a pretty cold, pretty miserable part of the U.S., so I think there's a part of me that that inside. I've always loved the spring, especially. The first day of spring isn't the first day of spring; it's the first day the snow melts. That type of thing, you know.
yeah.
Where I live now, it's I don't know. I still have that affinity for spring, even though that problem isn't there as much anymore.
Yeah,
Thank God. But
yeah,
summer's
yeah.
great
It
too.
doesn't get that cold here that it snows. Although it does. But and I love blowing people's minds with this fact. It does snow in Australia in various places.
Okay.
And so we actually do have a snow season in like a small little pocket of the country. It's quite funny.
So that's your tourist spot, I'm guessing.
Yeah. There's a lot of people kind of go down there for a snow holiday. They don't have to, fly to America or New Zealand or somewhere that
True.
actually does get snow all the time.
Got it. All right. Before we jump in, just want to say a reminder that we are on Spotify. I did end up figuring out how to do it as of the last episode. There's 2 versions that are on Spotify, and I know someone was confused about this last week. Shouts to ODI Seth, who's probably listening to this, unless last week sucked and he's not listening to this anymore. So there's 2 versions that are on Spotify, right? There's one, which is the first RSS service that I tried, and it sucks ass. So I switched to another one, and that one it's going to be all 3 episodes by the time that this goes up. Except you can't delete podcasts off of Spotify is kind of the long and short of it. So, or if you can, then I don't know how. Like, maybe you can't when going through like a third party transfer in with the RSS, but I think that's the only way that you can do it. Anyways, spare you all the technical crap. If you see a version that has only 1 episode, that's the wrong one, and you want to look for the other one, which hopefully should start being the first one that shows up in search results. Please, can we please have this algorithm work correctly? I don't know. And next on the dock is the news segment. What do you have for us this time?
Well, another update from Explorers of Alpha, and this is a very interesting one. So, as you know, 2.0 update is being worked on, and thanks to some technical wizardry, the starter pool has been expanded so that you can choose between multiple lists of starters inspired by and other balance and difficulty hacks. So you can have the vanilla Explorers of Alpha start list. There's also 3 others that inspired by hacks that some are on hiatus, some are not, but other starter pools include ones from Explorers of Reverie, Explorers of Heaven, Explorers of Reality, and there's also going to be a Surprise Me option, which will randomize, I believe, if I'm taking the discussion correctly, it will randomize your Pokemon. So it's almost like a randomizer within a ROM hack. And I know a lot of you out there have played the randomizer. It's probably the most popular thing that SkyTemple has produced, and
True.
You can now randomize your ROM hacks as well. So yes, no release date for the 2.0 update, and there probably won't be until it's released. But yeah, there's a lot of things. I know Mond, they they are working. You know, they've got a very good balance hack, difficulty hack. Just it's a great enhancement on the game, and I recommend if you're into that kind of thing, wait until 2.0 is released.
Yeah, that's kind of the meme, right? What Mon's been saying over and over. Wait until 2.0. When is it coming out? When it's ready. You know, classic game dev shit there. The randomizer thing, that's really cool. And then like something I also want to point out, I don't know if you've tried this before, but the randomizer, like the generic SkyTemple randomizer, does work on ROM hacks. I think all of them. I don't want to just say that because, you know, sometimes people such as myself throw a little spaghetti code in there that probably messes things up. But I don't know. I've seen people play through Explorers of the Spirit like randomized and not run into any crashes or anything, and that's all I could hope for personally. So just throwing that out there. All right. So this week we are. Oh my god! I just realized I didn't update the OBS thing, so I have to make the thumbnail manually after this. But you guys aren't going to see that. That's fun. All right.
Behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes. Episode 3. We are talking about the creator Slumbreon, and they have 2 hacks: Amaura on the High Seas and Tempest Machina. I think that's how you pronounce that word, right? Machina.
Yes, I think I've heard it that way as well. I used to say Machina, but I heard it once. I heard that when somebody was talking about Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh, okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Glad we're on the same page there. I was just thinking as I was reading that, like, oh man, like my brain just fogged up, and it's like, oh shoot, am I recalling like the wrong pronunciation right now? But no, we're good. So both these hacks. But before I dig in, I do want to say that we're probably going to be talking about Amaura on the High Seas a lot more on this episode because Tempest Machina is a project that is made by multiple people, some of which we may be interviewing later, and we want to spread our content out because that's how it works. Slumbreon on Tempest was, from what I understand, kind of like the gameplay director type of role, so we can still talk about it from a wide lens like that. But Amaura Slumbreon did everything. But for both of these, first point I want to make, unless you have anything you want to lead with, Yakko, I was going to go with that first bullet on the page.
No, I think you go ahead.
Okay. So, you know me. When I play through these games, I like to think about, I guess, the context of what I'm playing. Applies to ROM hacks, applies to video games, whatever. And it really got me thinking that a lot of people have very different gameplay philosophies when they go into hacking this game, right? Because Pokemon Mystery Dungeon is a roguelite and a JRPG. These are things that you would think kind of like conflict with each other in terms of like basic gameplay philosophy, and most devs will lean towards one end of the spectrum or the other when making their given PMD game, including Spike Chunsoft, by the way. like a thing that people commonly say about Super Mystery Dungeon is that it leans a lot more into the roguelite tendencies, and the JRPG-isms are toned down a little bit, or like de-emphasizing gameplay, however you want to say that. Slumbreon, I think, across both these hacks, is leaning a lot more in the roguelite direction, which, to me, it makes sense. If we're talking about modern times, PMD came out at a time where, like, roguelites in the West, PMD was really the first one that got, like, major traction like that. I know someone's gonna yell at me and say, what about this game that, like, sold 10,000 copies? Yeah, I'm not counting that shit, okay? For a lot of people, PMD Blue Rasputin was, like, their introduction to roguelites in the West. But nowadays, I mean, this is, like, a major genre coming out of the indie sphere. We're talking about games like Hades, Risk of Rain 2, which I just played yesterday. Fucking awesome game. Isaac has been going strong for the past decade. Returnal. That shit had like a huge budget on the PS5 last year. Gunfire Reborn, releasing on consoles this year. That's a good game. Dead Cells, that one's been out for a while. So roguelites are huge in 2022. These are all like games that people that keep up with games that are in the know. They know about these games. And there's a lot to take inspiration from, because all these games have very different directions for what they do with the roguelite formula. But none of them are JRPGs. And that's the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon difference. So how do you blend these things? And I think Slumbreon has a very interesting interpretation. For both these hacks are lengthy, and dungeons are designed like a marathon over sprint thing, and a lot of emphasis on item management, inventory management. And you know, I guess the difference from just a straight up run until the end roguelite is that there are natural stopping points. The hacks are divided into multiple dungeons, like other PMD games. But a lot of the fun, the messing around with your inventory, I guess, is the PMD case that really carried over, along with, you know, the turn-based gameplay, etc. This creates a really really unique feel, I think, and you can see all this philosophy like oozing through on these design choices. So if that sounds interesting, that's pretty much the gist of what I want to say. Yakko, you have a point here? You have a bullet?
Yes. So I do have a bit of a PSA. If you are playing this game, it is not compatible with real hardware, and why I say that is because right now the saves are currently bugged in the game. So when you save your game,
you're talking about Amaura, more on the high seas, not the other
sorry,
one.
I should clear up. Yeah, Amaura on the high seas. The saves are currently bugged in this hack. If you do save and return to the main menu, you will return to your bed in Wigglytuff's guild. You somehow get magically transported that you and your partner are now suddenly apprentices in Wigglytuff's guild. So they cannot be played on real hardware. The only way you can play it is with an emulator using save states. And I found out that the hard way because I don't use save states. And yeah, I was sort of coming back to my playthrough, and then I'm like, hang on, what's going on here? And I messaged Slumbreon actually, and I was saying, is this intentional? And he said, yeah, the saves are bugged. So yes, caution.
Yeah, caution. This is more on the high seas is one of the earlier hacks, and it just hasn't been updated. But I will say this: there are parts of both these hacks, but especially Amaura, where you can see there are like the gaps in technical knowledge. There's a bit of jank going on in this game, but you can see what the intention is, and then there's a lot of like clever workarounds in, like, especially in the writing around artist limitation. this is someone who knows that what am I trying to say here? Slumbreon's not someone who's yes. I guess they know their limit to saying I want to release a project with this knowledge that I have, and they are optimizing it. I guess is kind of the word I want to use. That probably makes it sound bad, but trust me, it's really not. It's something that you probably don't even notice it if you don't work this program, but it's like once you see just like the kind of stuff they pull off with so little, it's just really, to me, it's really impressive.
Yeah, and to be fair, you don't notice 90% of the time you don't notice the jank. You don't. You might notice, but it doesn't. It doesn't. Neither of these hacks it affects really the enjoyment of the game at all.
Right.
Like,
they just keep it simple. It was the point that we're trying to get at the end of the day. They keep it simple, and the only real bug is that thing Yakko said about you can't save an Amaura. And also both these hacks. Before we get into the spoiler section, I want to say that the writing in both hacks is very, very charming, very cutesy. A lot of, like kid main characters doing kid stuff. And I don't know, pulled off well. That's about all I have to say. I feel like we can't go deeper than that without going into spoilers. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah. No, I think that's probably about as much as we can really say in general, because one we can't sort of have spoilers in the spoiler section. We got to have that clear, that
of course. Line. This is a recommendation podcast, folks. Don't forget that. Okay, moving on to the spoiler section. Spoiler warning. We are going to talk about more on the high seas first, so ideally, having listened to this, you have already completed the game. I have a note on here saying Father's Day recently passed in the US, so it's a perfect time to play this game. Then you say Father's Day is actually in September. So
yes, we're one of the countries, one of the few countries that decided, what, we can't have Father's Day in the middle of winter, so we'll have it in the spring.
You know what? That's perfect. Dad vibes, that does not belong in the winter. Like, dads can't be, you can't be doing dad stuff like grilling in the winter, so that makes sense.
Yes. Or the Australian version is doing a renovation project.
Yeah. God.
Yeah, that stuff's popular here. We have a local hardware store that's almost like a cult. It's that.
Oh no. The joys of different cultures. Sure.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, we're talking about ROM hack. More on the high seas. The main gameplay change in this hack is something that I have wanted to steal ever since I first played this game. All TMs are compatible with all Pokemon. This doesn't seem like a lot. You're saying, oh, what's the big deal? Anyone can use any move. No. Like what we were saying earlier about doing a lot with a little, think about how much you can unlock by doing this. Like how dungeons are designed in this game is there are just TMs littered on the floor everywhere. Like really, really broken moves just littered on the floor everywhere. And it's just all available and there's no restrictions on anything. And like, think about the stuff, like, there's so many really smart decisions. Like, TMs are used as a replacement for max elixirs. Like how we said earlier that dungeons are long in this game, which normally the main problem with long dungeons is that since your PP doesn't replenish, you're eventually going to run out of moves. This game solves that by just having you have more TMs. And this something that forces you to change out your moveset sometimes, because if you really want to get greedy, it'd be like, oh my gosh, I have the perfect 4-move layout right now. All these moves are so good, I don't want to get rid of any of them. Well, if you do that, you're going to run out of moves pretty quickly. So you're going to have to make some hard decisions. But what it makes it a very... it's something that seems consequential, but it isn't. Like, once you start just swapping out moves willy-nilly, and you just don't get too comfortable with something and always keep shaking it up, you realize what this game is trying to do. And there's some... it's like you go through different stages of this game. There's a point in the run that I played before recording this podcast where on like the first couple floors, I picked up Giga Impact, and then as support, the other my partner had Wide Slash. So there's these weird combinations that you don't think would make sense, but it's like you throw out Giga Impact, and then on the delay, usually you would be screwed if there's multiple mons attacking you, but Wide Slash can hit both of them. So it's just like these interactions that would never happen in a real game, because why would you use Giga Impact? That type of thing. But like, I don't know. It comes together in such a strange way by forcing you to switch out your moves all the time. And something I wanted to add, I'm glad I looked at this bullet. A criticism of PMD ever since the beginning, ever since Blue Rescue Team, is that it's way too easy to autopilot in these games, which is how they were designed. These games are mobile games. It's supposed to be something that you can kind of get in a zen state and kind of just do the same thing, do however much min-maxing that you want to get your things set up, and then just start crawling through the dungeons. And the actual games have tried different ways to try and trip you up by adding traps and monster houses and whatever. Personally, I think traps and monster houses are garbage. They are not in my hack. And Slumbreon's answer to adding that randomness back in is littering TMs all over the floor, which is it's not fancy, It's I don't want to say amateurish because that's mean, but it seems just like so basic, so simple, but it works so well.
Yeah, I love this gameplay mechanic as well, and I really appreciated that small change that having TMs available for no TM restrictions at all. And for my playthrough, the way I utilized it was very much using it on Amaura only. So I kind of kept Feraligator's moveset largely the same, but as I was playing as Amaura, I was making sure that I built the moveset to cater to the dungeon that I was in. And if I suddenly found myself with a moveset that was, full of type disadvantages on my end, I would just throw in a new TM and go, okay, well, there's a lot of, rock Pokemon in this dungeon, so I'm going to, make sure I have a fighting move or something like that in the dungeon. So I really, really appreciated that change, and was a really nice, I guess, a different way of looking at the dungeon crawling aspect of the game, and a new way of strategizing.
So, quick question: what were your go-to moves on your most recent run? Personally, I was definitely I kept Fire Blast and then later Flamethrower way longer than I thought I would on Amaura. Those moves are way too strong.
Yeah. So for sort of where I ended up the game, I ended up, well, a couple of the moves that I kept were the ice moves, because Amaura is an ice type, so you got that same type attack bonus there. So I kept Aurora Beam in the late game. That was super powerful. Like I love just having that long range move. But then I also made sure I had Rock Throw in there for some of the sort of the flying types and that were in the game. And of course, Rock is one of those that has a type advantage.
Yeah, get the
the
stab.
majority of the types. Absolutely. And then I also had flamethrower to kind of mix it up for some of the ice types and the other types that were in there. But I also found too that it was also balanced by keeping for alligators water moves as well, and also having, I think he had Crunch in there as well, and Ice Fang, and a couple of water moves. So, for the most part, actually Dragon Claw. I also had Dragon Claw for most of the game.
Yeah,
so,
same. That move's so good with no fairies.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, another thing I like to do now I'm thinking about it, every time I play this game, I try to have Protect on at least one of them. Because that helps a lot against the bosses. That's a strat I like to do in every PMD game. Just have your tank up front and do some kind of like defense buffs or protect or something along those lines, and just eat hits.
It's interesting. I think my approach to the bosses were different. I more tried to go for item utilization and try and go for a bit of item cheese, I suppose. I mean,
Okay.
I think we're gonna be we'll be talking about the bosses a little bit later, so I might go into a bit more then. But I know for me, I tried to I like to hobble my bosses with item cheese.
Yeah. Totally fair. See what's the next bullet on here. Yeah, the bosses.
Shuckle.
So yeah, the Shuckle fight. So there's a cool thing about the bosses in this game where they have random movesets that pull. Well, I guess this is what original Explorers of Sky did too, but I'm just coming from my perspective because when I was making EOTS, Explorers of the Spirit. Sorry, shouldn't use acronyms on the podcast. I always went into it with the mentality of like every boss has the same static 4 moves. And so the first time I played this, I remembered like, oh yeah, other people have different gameplay philosophies from me. So there's a random pool that all the bosses can pull their moves from. Shuckle, if you pull him having Rest and Encore in his kit, good luck. That combo is so insane on him, where Shuckle has a pretty decent defensive typing, in my opinion, and like since in this hack there are such like PP restraints that includes the bosses as well. They all have a pretty decent amount of HP. If you get encored into the wrong move, you're fucked. And then like Rest, it is so demoralizing when you're encored into like some move and like you run out of PP and then he rests and then you can't kill him and then he gets like 500 health back or whatever it is. It's very frustrating, but other than that, I don't think he's a problem. There's a lot of ways to go around it, and what we were saying before, like you always have to adapt depending on what the boss happens to have at that point.
Yeah. I know. I mean, I think I was, I guess, for me, I haven't played a lot of the hacks before sort of doing this podcast, but I've read a lot of the discussions about it, and so I knew that there was an OP Shuckle at the at the start of it, and so I was like, okay, what items should I keep to try and level the playing field? And so I ended up finding a Cross-Eye Seed, so that it couldn't do any sort of I guess attacks there. I mean, I wasn't aware of Rest and Encore, but I just thought, well, I thought it was just Shuckle had too much health, to be honest. So I essentially though used the Cross-Eye Seed on him, and then when it wore off, I got lucky, and for the most part, it just used the regular attack and withdraw. And by that point, I'd already gotten most of his health down, so I beat it in one go. So you can get
there
lucky
you go.
if you plan.
It's true. It's actually all skill when they just spam withdraw and you're using the special moves. It's those moments that make you feel like you're really good at the game. Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing like Primal Dialga using Roar of Time in the final fight and then decides, you know what, I'm not going to use it again, I'm just going to use a regular attack.
Yeah, he just wanted to scare you a little bit. but then he's done. That's that's kind of the beauty of RPGs sometimes, where you just like keep reloading your save and roll using the same strats until you get lucky, and then you say that you outskilled the boss. My preferred method. Second boss in this game is Sableye. We're gonna be talking more about Sableye later because he's fucking hilarious. But he at the end of the game, it really makes you think how much just over the top power creep there is in this game, because he can one hit kill you with if any of his moves crit, like any of his normal moves that crit, and also he has a move that kills you without a crit, and also he has another move that will kill you without a crit if you buff yourself, which is punishment, which is very fucked up to do, and to give someone in a boss fight punishment, which penalizes you for fucking buffing yourself. Just evil. But it doesn't really feel unfair, despite everything that I just said, because you do so much damage in late game that he should be able to even hit you once. It's kind of crazy, but I don't know, that's what I was getting at the beginning. Like, that's how a lot of modern roguelites play. Like, super just off the deep end power creep, and it feels good.
Absolutely. And I didn't know about the punishment move, because I actually I buffed my two Pokemon with violent seeds at the start of the fight, so I would have been in big trouble if there was punishment there. I don't think I had any Reviver seeds for the fight. I can't exactly remember, but yeah, definitely for both of those boss fights, my usual crash or crash through strategy, low percentage plays. Yeah, I decided not to go down that route, because I thought I was going to be in for a bad time if I did.
Well, hell yeah. Let's see, where are we? Talking about the story now. I actually really like the writing of this game. I don't think it gets talked about very much in like the SkyTemple community necessarily, which, is a niche within a niche within a niche within a niche. So who are we to really like say anything about that? But I think the story is very good. It's how we said like Father's Day at the start. Kind of the crux of the story is Amaura is someone who just wants to be a good daughter for her adopted parent, and she's having trouble getting her, high school 16-year-old job at the market, and just feels like shit, and finds the pirate for alligator captain. They said his last name. I don't remember what it is. And it's this classic dynamic where they both have what the other one wants, right? Because Amaura convinces Captain to go back to finding treasure and shit, because that's what Amaura wants to do. She wants to feel like she is doing something with her life. And so that's what Amaura wants to have. She wants to live through Captain, be like, I'm going to be a cool pirate and go on cool adventures. And then Captain likes Amaura because she's not old and given up on life. He's getting some of his youthful vigor back by living through her. But as anyone who has been in this type of situation knows, when you try and live vicariously through another person like that. Sorry if you can hear that, by the way. My neighbor's having a fucking episode upstairs.
I can't hear a thing, thankfully.
Good.
So.
Good. So they both, when they're both living vicariously through each other like this, there's a point in the game where they start to get frustrated with each other, because that's what happens, because they are their own people and they're not just a codependent blob that you can live through to overcome what you're lacking yourself. So I don't know. It's surprisingly it gives surprising like respect to these type of topics. I think, even though Amaura is portrayed as like a dumb teenager because she is, but dumb doesn't mean bad. Dumb means dumb, and I think that's kind of like a good portion of what the story is trying to say. Does that make sense? Did I ramble too much there?
No, I think I agree with a lot of the writing for me. Yeah, I definitely saw a lot of the same points that you did. That they were. I mean, the whole kind of notion that Captain for Alligator is trying to relive his past life, but realizes that nothing lasts forever, and his body really can't take it anymore. And Amaura sort of realizes herself that she can't have everything straight away, or she can't sort of be be individual too much to kind of push people away or to assume. I think one of the things that I think we haven't mentioned is that relationship with Mamoswine that Amaura discusses, about how Amaura thinks that Mamoswine only sort of sees her as a disappointment that only asks her for money all the time because she can't find a job and all that. And I quite like that angle of, it wasn't just Amaura making the captain realize, what, relive his youth, but realize that nothing lasts forever. It works both ways. It's mutual in that the captain sort of teaches Amaura that people do care about you, and you aren't a burden, and they're still going to love you even if you haven't achieved maybe what they have thought you would achieve by that point. And I think it's quite an in-depth storyline, and I really enjoyed it. Like you said at the start, it's sort of youthful and cutesy, but at the same time, it has real meaning behind it, and the story makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, that's that exact scene you mentioned. I really, really like a lot, because it would be very easy to have this story be like the dad actually is disappointed in the daughter, but it's framed the whole way where like it's never actually said that the dad is disappointed in her, just that Amaura feels disappointed in herself because she's letting her dad down. But it's never said that her dad is actually disappointed in her, which Captain points out because he's the old wise guy. just classic stuff. Where that's a very teenager thing. There's a lot of teenager things in which Amaura will. You said it before. Like there's just this sense of like frustration whenever something doesn't immediately happen. Like, this is the thing I have to do, and I'm not doing it right now. What's wrong with me? Which the answer is usually it's not that easy, and that's okay.
Yes.
And that's part of what she learns over the course of the game. I have in here best line of the hack. Amaura says, "Wow, some Pokemon only have 2 cubes of sugar. No wonder there's so much suffering in this world." I love that line. I like the whole angle of and for people who don't recognize where that line's coming from, that's a part where they're all drinking tea. And then she's talking to Shuckle. She's like, "How many cubes of sugar do you want in your tea? 5 or 6?" And Shuckle's like, "I'll just have 2. Stupid. What is your favorite line? Did you put that on here?
I didn't put. I more have a favorite character, which and that's Sableye. I think just the scenes that Sableye were in, I almost feel like he was almost a scene stealer. It was just the character, the way it was written. I mean, I know you've I know Slumbreon's told you about maybe where the inspiration comes from. Me, I didn't have any context. for me, I was picturing, and maybe it's the design as well, I was almost picturing like Frodo from Lord of the Rings. I was kind of picturing that kind of voice inside my head, because I do character voices inside my head, don't we all? And I mean, I haven't seen Lord of the Rings, so I don't know how on the mark I am. All I know is, pop culture.
My precious
line. But I was almost thinking when they got to the end and they were at the Azure Diamond, and I was almost waiting for Sableye to go, "My precious Azure Diamond." Or something. It would have fit perfectly, but Sableye just in general was my favorite character in the entire game. Just so many character traits and everything. It was just great.
Sableye too is sometimes I like to think of stories through almost like a pro wrestling angle. I don't know why that kind of concept sticks in my head, because I used to watch a decent amount of wrestling as a kid, where Sableye is the type of guy where he shows up on the screen and the whole time you're just like, oh my god, can this guy just get beat up already? Like that's all you're thinking the whole time. Like, this guy is such a shithead. I just want the good guy to come out and beat him up already.
So can someone in the audience please throw a chair?
Yeah. Yeah, he's great. We're gonna be talking more about the inspiration thing. I think is one of the interview questions, because that makes sense to me. Moving on to Templus Machina, which this hack might not actually be called Templus Machina. This is gonna be another question we have. It might be Machina Templum. I don't know. I think there was some confusion there. We're gonna clear up later on in the show.
Yeah. But I think there's also confusion as to the names of the people who made it. If you've watched the game's playthrough, I should explain. Yeah, so Slumbreon and Alex and Groovy were the three people that made this. This was for Hack Jam 3, but Groovy is credited as Gorgonzola on the PMD game playthrough, and I want to clarify that on Groovy, even though he didn't tell me to. I'm going to do it anyway. That is, Gorgonzola was just one of those Discord nicknames that you have in the server, and so it's quite funny there. But no, I can 100% confirm that his name is Groovy, and he made it along with Alex and Slumbreon,
the artist formerly known as Gorgonzola.
Yes.
Slumbreon for this hack did the way it's worded is mechanic implementation and dungeon balancing. And when I read that, to me that means directing, because if you're the person that is actually coding and putting stuff in the game, that means that you run the show. To me that seems obvious, but maybe that's not obvious to some people that haven't been really done these kind of like big group projects, especially with SkyTemple before. But whoever does the coding runs the show is pretty much how it works. But let's see, what's the next bullet? Pokey has been replaced with the mysterious relic. That is the gameplay gimmick for this hack. Pokey wasn't in, well, actually it was in Amaura, wasn't it? I just never used the shop.
Yes. Shuckle ends up going back to the island and runs a shop.
Yeah. Forgot to mention that. Very important. We did mention it because those items were like not that useful, if we're being honest. But I digress. The shop here is like really good though. That's kind of why I wanted to bring it up, because it's so you can pick up items as you go through. And you have the option. Either you can use it like a blast seed, except it's like a lot stronger. it's like a nuke in front of you, basically. You could do that. Or you can hold on to it, and if you accumulate enough of these, you get a chance to exchange with the black market merchant, who's wearing the cool shades like the Rhino guy from Ratchet and Clank, if anyone gets that reference. And if you have enough of these, you can trade it for a Reviver Seed, which they have pretty low spawn rates in this game, if I remember right. I don't think I ran into one naturally. So you have the choice. You can either just use it as a nuke, or you can go the safe route if you want to hold on and then get your exchange. And Reviver Seeds are extremely broken, so there's definitely merit to doing that. Different play styles, folks. Same general gameplay concept. What were you gonna say?
Oh no, I was just agreeing with you there, but I think on further to that is it is interesting, sort of with this game, the item management in this game. So there are two different sets of teams that you play throughout the game, because this was made for the third hack jam, like we've mentioned in other episodes, and the topic theme various viewpoints. So that means that you have sort of two different teams. You've got a Growlithe and an Alolan Vulpix, and then you've got a second team of Umbreon Ralts and Illumise. I think that's how you pronounce it. And look, we'll hopefully talk a bit more about how this was written, because Illumise especially was, I think, the standout in this hack. But
yeah, that Groovy has the credits for that, but we may be able to get some insights.
Yes. So the items, when you play as each team, the items are separated. So once you start playing as the second team, your items get reset, but your mysterious relics do carry over, which I think does help in a way, so that you're not starting completely from scratch. I mean, from a continuity perspective, who cares, really?
True.
But I think it balances out the fact that you do start from scratch, that you can at least, use what you've used so far to perhaps give yourself an edge when you're playing through as the second team.
Yeah, definitely. This hack was one that, while I was going through it, just gonna be blunt, I'm not gonna lie, I do prefer Amaura. I do prefer the gimmick and the mix-up in gameplay over this one, but this one's still good. It's it definitely does its own thing. Like, I would say probably the largest difference here is that this game's a lot easier, which to some people that's a pro, to some people that's a con. But in this game, it does feel like once you get rolling, you are running over enemies in a way that is very cathartic, and I don't know, very cathartic / to some it would be like less replayable, would be a criticism. Like, the systems here are good. There is a part of me that wishes that there was something to test it on. I don't know if you get that feeling, but we don't try to dwell on the negatives, because there are positives. Just an acknowledgement there that this is an easier game, for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree there. Definitely. I mean, I think story-wise they both hold up, but in terms of gameplay, if you're more of a gameplay-focused person, Amaura is definitely the more challenging of the two. But they are still both great hacks, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's about it. When we come back from commercial break, we're going to be going into the interview with Slumbreon. We are only 45 minutes late from the listed time. Okay, let's do it. Everyone, we're back!
Hello.
We are both joined by Slumbreon, who just said hello.
Hi.
Welcome to
You
the
jumped the gun.
podcast. No, it's okay. We love the enthusiasm. So we talked about both ROM hacks that you worked on, Amaura on the High Seas and Templus Machina. First question. I know this at the bottom, Yakko, but I'm just doing it now. Is it Templus Machina or Machina Templum?
So I think it's Machina Templum.
I think.
But when I submitted it, it was pretty early in the morning, and I was really exhausted, and so I typed it in wrong. I typed it in as Templus Machina. That I typed it in wrong, so so it's I think it's supposed to be Machina Templum.
So was the writer on your team pissed off about that?
Groovy was a little annoyed, but I don't think he minded too much.
Yes, because I think in the game, it's definitely the artifact that they are going after is the Machina Templum. So, yeah.
We definitely called it Templus Machina the whole time. So if you're to take my advice, I think that could be something that could be I don't know. Come up with some like fake deep reason why there's two different names for it. In fact, in the sequel, you could have an item called the Templus Machina. How about that?
I think the lesson here is just don't use Latin names for your ROM hack.
No, it's cool though. That's something like when you have a Latin name that automatically makes it cool. That's just like video game 101.
That is true.
Okay. That was question 0. Question 1. This is I've been wondering this for a long time. How in the world did you make Amaura on the high seas in 3 weeks? And I'll just leave it at that. I can elaborate, but I want to hear everything that you have to say first.
Okay, so if you want the complete truth, it's that it was the very end of my senior year, and I was pretty sure that my grades were not going to change no matter what I did. So I worked on class, like over Zoom while we were in like Zoom calls and stuff. That's the truthful answer. But also, I worked on it like a lot. Like it was kind of the only thing I was doing those entire 3 weeks. Like I would like work on it and then take a short break and then I'd work on it again, and it was basically the only thing I was doing. I wasn't doing almost anything else.
Did you started from 0 if I remember right? You had no knowledge going in?
That's not completely true. I had like opened up the ROM a few times. There was a point in time when I was make like a parody hack of the original game. So I'd actually I'd messed with some of the dialogue scripts in the first chapter, but other than that, yeah, I was going in completely oblivious to how to to how to make a ROM hack for Explorers of Sky.
So when you is the lesson to be learned here that if you throw your head against the wall for long enough and with enough conviction, you will come out with something.
Yeah, I suppose that is the takeaway. I definitely got a lot of help. I remember there was a point in time. There was like at least 1 week during the jam when almost every single day I was asking 1 or 2 questions in the help channels. I definitely got a lot of help, but for the most part, yeah, I really just was very determined to make a full hack.
There you go, folks. That's Yakko and I, before we went live, we were actually kind of talking about this exact thing. Like, if you just that exact thing, throw your face against the wall, I mean, you will come out with something, and you'll learn a lot. All right, I've been talking too long, Yakko. What's one of your questions?
Yeah, so I think we were talking. Well, I mean, I want to talk about Sableye, right? Because I think both of us really like. I mean, for me, Sableye was my favorite character in the hack. I hope you don't mind that I said it was a scene stealer. So you've talked, I think, to Max about inspiration behind Sableye's character. Could you, I guess, elaborate on that a bit more? And if you excuse me for asking a double-barreled question, were there any other characters that you kind of were directly inspired by, or inspirations, I suppose, for any of the characters in the hack?
Okay, so maybe this will be mildly, but like when I was like 14, 15, I was really into watching parodies of My Little Pony.
Oh, okay.
I watched like Abridged series for My Little Pony, and one of the characters in at least one of the Abridged, like they made fun of Pinkie Pie in a way that I thought was really funny. They turned her into basically like a psychopath. But what really stood out to me about like the way they did that character was that like her verbal like tics and whatnot were very like interesting, and a lot of like the way Saber talks is based on how that that parody of Pinkie Pie that I watched when I was like 14, 15. It's based on how that character talks, which is kind of an interesting inspiration for sure. I found it really funny, so I think Yakko said he liked it too. So, or I guess say Yakko, you liked it too. I should talk to you because you're in the.
No, worries. I was saying that Sableye reminded me a bit of Frodo from Lord of the Rings. I was just waiting for him to pick up the Azure Diamond and go, "My precious," something like that.
Oh yeah. There actually was a little bit of a Gollum inspiration, although it was definitely like a like less of a. It was a little bit more minor than the main the main inspiration, but it was definitely there. I definitely thought about it a little. It was definitely like a consideration.
And thank you for correcting me there, because I did not. You can tell I have not watched Lord of the Rings, because I'm sure 40 minutes ago someone was writing a comment.
Yeah, we were both in agreement that his name was Frodo.
It's Gollum, not Frodo.
Frodo is the ultimate villain of Lord of the Rings.
I mean, that's a 9 hour. It's like yeah.
It's episode 3.
Those movies, like, yeah, those movies are 9 hours long. I don't have the attention span. COVID killed my attention span.
Yeah, true. I'm a Zoomer, born after 95. I think that's a cutoff, right? Born after 95.
I think so.
So I have an excuse.
You're sorry?
I said I have an excuse.
Oh, okay.
I have to say, dude, My Little Pony. I missed the train on My Little Pony back when that was like the thing that everyone on the internet talked about everywhere. Is that show good?
I don't actually know how to answer that question.
Okay.
Because like depending on what your tastes are in a show, some people really like it and some people just don't get the appeal. It's like a show. It's a show that tailors to like very specific interests in a TV show is the way I would describe it.
I like to think, like I like to think, and this is only going from what I remember reading about why it exploded. I think it probably came out at a time where sort of that sort of post irony kind of humor was kind of missing in cartoons that maybe they had in the past. Like, I know one of my favorite shows, it's in my name, Yakko, Animaniacs, and sort of, I think shows like that probably weren't, like, there weren't many of those shows, but I guess the people that were attracted to those kind of shows, it was almost maybe reminding them of that kind of post-ironic humor that then filtered into the internet. You know, I mean, SpongeBob is another type of show like that, but yeah, I don't know why I started talking about this. This is a ROM hacking podcast, not a
No, this is perfect. So is this? So when you say post irony, do you mean post irony or do you mean double layered irony? Because to me, those are two different things. Like, there's double layered irony.
You're probably you've probably got a better grasp on the topic than I do. I'm kind of trying to think if that was the right term or not, but I think I think it came out at a time where perhaps cartoons had stagnated a little bit, or people were. I think that came out around the same time as like Adventure Time and Regular Show and all that, and people starting to kind of bemoan the art style. Like, I mean, those shows are really good, top quality shows, but I think, like me, I was sort of growing out of cartoons at that age and was looking at shows like Regular Show and Adventure Time and actually not really kind of liking it. And I think it probably reminded, mid-teens, late teens people of kind of maybe how cartoons used to be. I don't know. That's just a theory of mine. Like I said, full disclosure, I've never watched a single episode, so I'm just, spitballing here. But I know as someone that has paid attention to cartoons, sort of.
Slum, is that true, or did he just lie to me, like when he said his name is Frodo?
Wait.
No,
I'm a bit lost, I'm going to be honest.
Is everything that he just said about that show true? I need to verify this.
Oh, that. So I wasn't like very active on the internet when it became popular.
Okay.
So I can't speak a ton for it, but I think it was kind of one of those shows that that people latched onto in a bit of like an ironic way, but then it slowly grew into something that people genuinely really enjoyed. That's kind of the impression I get out of it.
So it is post-ironic.
I can't say quite for sure, though.
That makes sense. The reason why I brought that up, like, do you mean post-ironic or not? Because, like, when I think of, like, layering irony on top of irony, I think that's something different than, like, post-irony. The example I always go to is, like, Kingdom Hearts, which is that exact thing you just mentioned. Like, you think it's stupid, and then you stick around with it long enough, you realize, wait, this is actually really good.
I think that's what happened. I think that's what happened, that people, like, they were forced to watch it with their 5-year-old, and then, like, it's like, oh, crap, the jokes are actually well written and, like, not, not dumb. I think that was probably what happened.
Yeah, I think that was probably a big of it. I remember I first watched it because my sister was really into it. She was about, like, I want to say like 8 or 9 at the time, and so I had to watch it with her sometimes. And eventually, I was like, wait a second, I mind watching this with my sister.
That's how they get you, man. That's how they get you.
You fall into the trap.
So I had written down I remember you saying just offhand that for Sableye, it wasn't anything to do with that. It was Fawful from Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. Did I just make that up, or did you say that at one point?
That is also true.
Okay.
That was like, I'd say like the My Little Pony parody was like 60% of it, and then Fawful was like probably 30 or 35% of it.
Okay.
So I am a huge fan of Bowser's Inside Story. It's like probably in my top 5 favorite games. I love that game to death. And I think Fawful is one of the best villains ever. So there was definitely an inspiration. I forget exactly. Definitely some lines that he says that were very much inspired by some lines Fawful has in Bowser's Inside Story, and maybe in Superstar Saga as well.
Very interesting. What's your next one, Yakko?
Yeah, so look, I want to clear something else up about your hack. So Hack Jam 1 ended up having 2 hacks with Pirate for Alligators as protagonists. Yours and Chip 2, made by Miju. So can you confirm here on this podcast, once and for all, let's settle this once and for all, was there no collusion between your hack and Miju's?
There was genuinely no collusion. There was So, truth is, I actually came up with the very, like, basic idea for the story, actually, a few months before the Hack Jam started. And originally it was going to be Amaura and a pirate Rhyperior. But when I was making the hack, I kind of looked at it and I was like, Amaura and Rhyperior share a ton of weaknesses, and it's going to kind of restrain what kind of like dungeons and challenges I could face the player with. So I decided to pick a different Pokemon so that I could kind of like have more type variety on the team. And I just looked through the Pokemon and I was like, Feraligatr has a pirate vibe, so I'm gonna go with him.
Perfect.
Nice. But you realize that though you've started a bit of a SkyTemple inside joke now. Pirate for alligators are now they're in vogue right now.
It was just complete coincidence, and I think the fact that it was a complete coincidence makes it just so much funnier.
Absolutely.
So, you just brought up there that, like, you're changing the characters around for gameplay reasons, which is something that I think a lot of creators do, but I want to delve deeper into that, because when playing through the dungeons in both these hacks, from what I understand in Templus Machina Templum, you also had a decent hand in dungeon bouncing for that one, and then obviously for Amaura, because you made that all yourself. What is your walk us through your process of how do you go through balancing dungeons? Like, how do you know when, what's your starting point, and how do you know when you're not done, because you're never done, right? But when you're willing to move on?
Okay, so first thing I want to clarify is that Machina Templum, the last couple dungeons were definitely a bit rushed, so that's why they're almost identical to the that's why they are a little bit bare bones. But in terms of my dungeon balance philosophy, so a bit of a criticism I have of PMD as a whole is that there are just a lot of moves and mechanics that are just kind of they're not necessarily things that the player will always have an answer to, like hypnosis is any sleep move is really strong, like room wide moves are extremely strong, stuff like that. So usually what I try to do is I go through all the and I get rid of any move on them that overwhelming, so that I start with kind of a base of Pokemon that are very very controlled. They only have just basic, a very basic move. And then if I decide that a certain Pokemon is maybe too easy, then maybe I'll add something a little bit more interesting onto the Pokemon. Maybe I will give them a sleep move or something. So the goal is my number one goal with making a dungeon is that I always want the to feel if they lose, it was because they made a mistake, not just because they rolled bad RNG or something like that.
This is interesting because we did a really similar thing with Explorers of the Spirit. Was there a checklist of? You mentioned sleeping moves. Is there anything else where you see it pop up in the move list, you're immediately nope, get rid of that? For us, it was multi hits and room clearing moves. And, stuff like Spite also. Just a couple fringe moves like Spite, because no one likes Spite. Fuck that move.
Oh yeah. All of those moves I got rid of. Any confusion move was a big one I always got rid of. Honestly, just a ton of moves in this game that aren't very basic attacking and status moves. Because also any speed boosting move, that was huge. Agility's a no-go. Because it boosts the whole room.
Mm-hmm.
Agility's ridiculous. But my goal was make a very controlled group of Pokemon, and then if it's too easy, then add a little bit of an uncontrolled factor to it.
Makes sense. Yeah, we we talked about both your hacks mechanically like quite a bit. I think we sorry to speak for you, Yakko, but we both really liked what you have going on. So I had to get that question in there.
All right, well, thank you.
Let's see. So you mentioned earlier that you talked about making a parody hack before. I'm curious, did any of your ideas that you had before spill into either project that you've worked on so far?
I can't name any specific one off the top of my head, but I definitely, there's almost no way that isn't the case. So that was originally why I got SkyTemple. I wanted to make a parody hack, but for kind of a variety of reasons, I just never really got around to doing that. So, but then when I kind of felt like it was like a better opportunity to get started, I guess.
For sure.
I'm curious myself. Sorry, and sort of question without notice. I know that a lot of people got introduced to SkyTemple because of Decimeter's Mystery Dungeon Abridged hack. Were you did sort of, I guess, what sort of inspired you to kind of start making, like, was the parody hack idea because of Abridged, or was that just something that you've had in your head yourself? Yeah, something you had in your head yourself. I don't want to say that you're trying to copy Decimeter. I don't. I just realized how that question might have sounded, but hopefully that question makes sense.
Okay, so this is actually a really funny story. I'm glad you asked this. So, I came up with it myself. I did not actually even know who Decimeter was until after I became involved in I joined the SkyTemple server and started talking about some ideas I had for. So something really funny is that when I was talking in the server, I would repeatedly post in the Hack Ideas channel, like, oh, I want to make this joke, I want to make this joke, and stuff like that. And eventually, I kept specifically saying, like, I'm basing this heavily on, like, a Abridged series on YouTube. And so there was and also, very important, I actually had a Dialga profile picture at this point in time on Discord.
Oh my god.
So there was a point when someone asked me, hey, are you the guy who's making Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Abridged? And I was like, oh my god, I have a fan. And so I was like, yes, I'm the person making Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Abridged. And someone else pointed out to me, they sent me Decimeter's YouTube, and he said, they said, is this you? And I said, oh, I'm really sorry, that's not me. I got so embarrassed that I honestly considered leaving the server entirely. I felt like my whole introduction to the community was me unintentionally dating someone who was very well liked and very well known, and eventually But a little while before I was planning to leave the server, I actually saw Decimeter chatting in one of the channels, and I was like, considering that I kind of I kind of made people think I was him, maybe I should apologize to him directly. And then I talked to him for a little bit, and he was actually he was really nice about it. And funnily, that's actually kind of how I became friends with him. So yeah, I became friends with Decimeter because I accidentally impersonated him on the SkyTemple Discord server.
I was hoping you'd mention that question, because I have heard that story, and I just, I was just curious to know, when was that point where, did you know about Abridged before this, or was this an original idea? So yeah.
No, I never knew about Abridged until someone specifically pointed out that there is an actual hack called PMD Abridged, and it was not just my idea that I mentioned was based on a Abridged series.
Jeez. All right, just a couple more questions, and we'll get you out of here. I want to. This is probably gonna be a recurring theme. We're gonna ask about what's your upcoming work. I hear that you have a new concept going on with a Snivy and a Purloin. Is this still a thing? Is this still a concept, a work in progress? Do you have any scoops for the podcast? Any plans? Any grand ideas? Things to look forward to, etc.
My motivation is very up and down, generally speaking, which is kind of why I've mostly made hacks for the Hack Jam, because it's kind of like a burst of like, oh, I should do something right now. So I still kind of have the idea for a more like long form. I don't know if it will star Snivy and Purloin, but I do have some ideas. The main thing I'm kind of thinking of right now is actually the possibility of going back to High Seas and potentially releasing an update, just because the fact that I had almost no experience going into it definitely shows in some aspects of it, like the fact that the saves don't work at all. So an update is long overdue, and to be honest, again, like I mentioned, I definitely have some motivation problems, so I can't promise that it will happen soon, but I definitely do want to at least try to get an update for the hack out at some point in time.
Is Amaura the project that you feel more connected to, invested in, whatever, however you want to word that?
I would definitely say that I feel more connected to Amaura than to Templus, for a couple reasons. The first is that I made Amaura all by myself, whereas Templus I made much more on a team. So there's more of a personal connection there. Another one is that Amaura on the High Seas is just a story. It was a hack I just had a ton of fun making. It was about one of my favorite Pokemon, which is Amaura. I felt like in some ways it was a bit more of a personal hack than Templus was.
Sure.
Makes sense.
All right, and that leads into our classic reoccurring segment. In 30 seconds or less, tell me, why will Amaura on the High Seas win Hack of the Year?
Okay, it was okay, I don't know. I guess I could say it was probably the most ambitious Hack Jam 1 submission. I believe that. I don't believe most people would not argue with that. It has, in my opinion, a pretty a story that balances being heartfelt and funny quite well. It has a great sense of adventure and sort of like grand quests and whatnot.
All right.
I don't know if I have much more than that.
That's 30 seconds. No, you're good. That's great. That's great. Thank you. And any closing remarks that you want to tell SkyTemple Podcast audience before we're done?
So I'm sure some people will be anxious to hear me stop rambling, because I do tend to talk a little bit fast and a lot in any given I guess thought there and it slipped my mind. I guess the last thing I want to sort of mention is like the hardest part of getting started on the hack that the hard making the hack you want to make is just getting started, to be completely blunt. Like the hurdle of just sitting down and actually deciding I'm going to do this is easily your biggest obstacle.
1000% agreed.
Like as it's as soon as you sit down, like you'll actually start making progress. You can get help from people. You can work on like getting an understanding how the thing works, but it's just getting started. That's hard, but if you could just get past that hurdle, you could do a lot of great things with this game, because there are very few ways that your ability to hack this game is held back by like the tools and whatnot, because SkyTemple is probably the most robust hacking tool I've ever seen, if I'm being completely honest.
Same.
Yeah, I have briefly tampered and like tried to hack mainline Gen 5 Pokemon, and there are just
Yeah,
you need like a dozen just to work on the game, and even then there's tons of stuff you can't do, like doing cutscenes. You just need to know like hex code and stuff like that. So SkyTemple is a phenomenal resource, and like there's you could really push this game incredibly far with the tools available to you.
Okay. We'll end it on that. Thanks for listening, everyone. Episode 3. Got done with it. It's a great one. Thank you to Slumbreon for joining us. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah. See ya around. Catch you next time, and thanks for listening.
Fuck yeah.